Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 11 of our WCW 1998 Save and TEW 2020. This is our sold out preview, and of course, sold out our pay per view for January, our first one. Finally, we've gotten there in this series, but should be a very good show. We'll look at the card here and kind of the build everything. But before we do that, I guess we can jump into some of the headlines because the WWF aiming at us here, starting a major Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Shawn Michaels storyline. Well, that's good for them. They should. That will be a huge hit. So good to see there. The National Wrestling Alliance changed. You remember if you watched our save, WWF had like some National Wrestling Alliance stable or something. And it was like Jeff Jarrett, Kane, just a weird kind of conglomerate of guys in there. I don't know what they were thinking, but apparently Jarrett no longer in the group, so he's out. So I don't know who that leaves, what that looks like. What a stable that is. But apparently they have a new member. Of course, their new member is the British Bulldog, who we've tried to just completely destroy all of his overness and popularity, knowing that he's jumping ship from WCW to WWF. So he gets to join the National Wrestling Alliance, and I think his contract starts first week of February. So to be honest with you, I've even thought about putting him on the sold out card in like an impromptu match and having someone beat him. That may happen, folks. I'm just going to be honest with you. So we're trying to do everything we can. We're in a war here against the WWF, and knowing that he's jumping, we've still got him for one more show. So if you see an impromptu match pop up on the sold-out card, you'll know why. The Undertaker is going to begin a feud with The Rock. Again, Michaels, Austin, Rock, Taker. WWF should be fine in terms of what they're doing. Shamrock, Kane. So all those are pretty good. So good for them. Anything else we need to look at here? I don't think so. All right, that's good enough. Let's look at the sold-out card. And this is what it looks like. Boy, we got a lot of stuff here. A lot of shows in WCW. But, all right, let's start with Booker T and Raven. That is our television championship match. Booker T is our title holder. Booker T's been holding it since, I think it was, sometime in December. So that's something we put together. This storyline has not had a lot of heat. I mean, 58. Raven's not that over. Booker's not that over. They're both in the mid-50s, I think, still to this point. So this hasn't exactly been, one of our best storylines by any means. But, we're not meeting that 65 heat of the fans and those kind of things. But luckily, we have a lot of other things that have kind of come through. So this has been one of our lesser storylines, and it's mainly been focused on what it says: the flock going after the TV title. Booker kind of having to go through the flock to get to Raven, even though Booker's the champ. It's all about kind of getting that revenge for Raven, kind of setting all this in motion. So that's going to be an interesting match for the television championship. Two good workers. It's just from a popularity standpoint, we've talked about kind of the gap between the really top guys, that we're going to talk about here in a second, and sort of that mid card. That there's a bit of a gap there in popularity, but nonetheless, that is on the card, and I think be a pretty good match between those two. All right, Bret Hart versus Ric Flair. No popularity concerns here because this match is one that we know will be for all the marbles here in terms of who goes on to the Super Bowl main event. Remember, we've already set in motion our Super Bowl main event for next month. It will be the winner of Bret Hart, Ric Flair, and whoever becomes the World Heavyweight Champion in that match between Hogan and Sting. What am I doing? I'm looking for storylines here. Anyways, so we kind of look at what these guys have been involved in. We've put them in this whole world title triangle, which kind of started, as we know, with Hogan, Sting, and Bret, but now we've added Ric Flair to the mix to build to this match. So they've kind of been involved in the storyline with this one. And, we really played up the importance for Flair here, kind of calling it his last shot at the World Heavyweight Championship and how this could be it for him to get his hands, back on that title before he retires. And I keep joking about that. He'll retire, 20-something years later after this. But, that's what we're going for. And we also, in the previous episode, if you watch Thunder, we're really pointing out that Bret, has some of that sort of bitterness from being screwed out of the title in the WWF and the Montreal Screwjob, and he's played that up, saying that he's always kind of been the world champion. He's never lost that world championship status, and he's going to become world champion after he beats Flair and goes on to Super Bowl to face either Hogan or Sting. So, I mean, look, there's no denying how great this match is going to be. I think this will easily be the best match on the show, probably. Although Hogan and Sting are so over that one, could get there, but I think it's going to be Bret and Flair. I think they're going to put on a tremendous match, and yeah, I think this is going to be a lot of fun, and like I said, a lot of high stakes with the winner going on to the Super Bowl main event. All right, Jericho, Malenko. We've played this up with Jericho. We've kind of got all these guys lumped in here in terms of the Cruiserweight chaos, and it's been a hot storyline, so that's good to know. We have built this one up pretty well, I think. Malenko's already beaten Jericho once, and that kind of sent Jericho in denial about saying that Malenko's never beaten him, and everybody's kind of pointing out, and those kind of things. And Jericho just really playing up the heel tendencies here, basically saying Malenko's scared of him and all this other stuff. But they're finally going to get in the ring as Jericho issued the challenge, and they're going to get back in the ring here together, and we'll see how it plays out this time. But Malenko 1-0 versus Jericho, although Jericho sees it as 0-0 at this point. So another match that, if you just look at the skills that, these guys are going to have, I would expect another good match between these two. So, I fully expect this to deliver. And the good thing is, for a lot of these matches, not all of them, but there's just several here that we can kind of use that still of the show note. We can do the all-out match, because these are good workers. And so I think that's going to be something that we can play to our advantage on some of these. DDP versus Steven Regal. This will be for the U.S. Heavyweight Championship. This one's kind of been interesting. I'll be honest with you, I don't even think we actually set the storyline in place yet. Because the problem is, we've talked about it before. Regal is not very over. He's like in the 40s still at this point. And so that's something to kind of consider heading into this. And that's going to play into kind of how we built this match. DDP, meanwhile, he's like in the lower 70s now. So, it's kind of would be a big upset if Regal wins this championship. But, we built it saying he's going to bring some class to the U.S. heavyweight title and those kind of things. So another match I think will be pretty good. I think it's just going to be a matter of Regal's popularity. He's been hit with the, fans are being turned off by basically having a pre-show worker on the main card. We've seen that several times, but that's not going to happen here because he's facing DDP. But still, we've tried to find ways to get Regal over, and what a way it would be to get him over if he wins the U.S. heavyweight title. All right, Eddie versus Ray for the Cruiserweight Championship, and we kind of just showed you the Cruiserweight Chaos storyline and all that we have going on. And, of course, the most recent addition that we had on Thunder was J.J. Dillon announcing a replacement for this Cruiserweight Championship match. Initially, it was supposed to be Eddie versus Ultimo Dragon. As I told you guys, we quickly realized that Dragon's contract talks with CMLL were going to basically put us in a position where he was going to sign that exclusive contract and he would not be available for this show. Even though technically he's still on the roster, I think, as of right now, but he would not be available for the show because the other, the CMLL show that's happening as well on Sunday, that's going to take precedent over this one. So that's going to take priority. So that's kind of why we won't have Ultimo for the show. And, we switched it around to put Ray in there, but I said, I kind of teased it. I think it's going to work actually pretty well because we had something in mind with Ray and kind of, the interactions with Eddie and those kind of things. So I think it's going to actually work out pretty well to actually make the switch here and go with Eddie versus Ray. And here's another match. You better bet we're doing still the show, and these two will go all out to probably give us a pretty good match from a rating standpoint. So Eddie versus Ray for the Cruiserweight title. We'll get to this one last, but Kevin Nash versus the Giants. As mentioned, this is one where, it's all about the power bomb, and that's what we played up. As I said before, we left this NWO dissension storyline that was already in here, built into the mod, and just kind of added some different stuff to the mix. Oh, wait, I forgot. We still have Giant versus Giant. We'll get to the NWO one in a second when we look at some of these other guys. But Giant versus Giant, so we left that one in here. That was also another one that was already kind of in the mod, and we just expanded on it. But, it's been a pretty good feud, 72. With this, we've kept these guys interacting quite a bit. And, that's one of the things, having Nitro and Thunder, that you have to get creative trying to figure out ways for that many shows to keep these guys interacting without, actually having them in a match. So yeah, that's kind of where we've been with that. And this is all about the power bomb. If you remember, the Nash is guaranteed he's gonna power bomb the Giant in this one. And as I told you guys before, if you haven't gone back and watched what actually happened when Nash tried to power bomb the Giant, go find that and close your eyes, because it was not pretty by any means. So yeah, you can check that out. Hopefully that doesn't happen in this match though. But Nash versus the Giant, another match between two big stars. So I think, I don't know how good the match will be, but popularity-wise, they're pretty good. So Lex Luger versus Randy Savage, same situation. Another one here that, we've had these two going at each other. Savage has kind of had two storylines going on. Savage has been, someone who's had his stuff going on with Luger, but at the same time, he's also, I forgot it was this one, the rivalry contention. I mean, this is almost to an 80, so like we've really pushed this one pretty well. But of course, we have pushed it. The tension between these two wanting to fight, but also Savage's kind of tension with Hogan and the NWO right now, and just a lot of different stuff. So, of course, if you've watched the save at this point, or if you haven't, and maybe you're just like, all right, I'm going to start at this point. One thing we realize is that Savage and Hogan, because they hate each other, Savage will not be in any segments with Hogan. So that had to make it a little creative in terms of how we went about pushing that tension between Savage and Hogan while also keeping this Luger match at the forefront. So yeah, that's been I don't even say it's been a challenge. Like, we've found some ways to work around it pretty easily, but that is something we've had to do in this feud. So, but still, I mean, look, another match that I think will deliver very well between these two. Yeah, we've got a lot of stars here. So I think it's another match that will deliver in a big way for that one. All right, Scott Hall, Larry Zabisco. I don't know how good this one will be. I don't know what Larry's. I have to kind of look more into Larry's ratings and stuff in terms of his in-ring skills at this point in his career. But again, another one here that you just kind of look at what we've had going on, and this is one we did kind of play up based on. I mean, look, it's at an 81, guys. Like, I know it may seem like one that would not be that high, but it's actually gone pretty well having Hall and Zabisco interacting here, and you can kind of see the starting point for the feud and just how everything got to this point coming out of Starrcade and all of that. So yeah, I mean, this is another one though that I think will actually do pretty well. I don't think Zabisco's that over. I want to say he's in the upper 60s maybe. We know Hall is over, but so yeah, I'm curious to see how this one does. This is one of the more intriguing matches for me because I don't really know what to expect from it from a rating standpoint, but I think it could be pretty good. So we'll see what we get with that one. And then the World Tag Team Championships on the line. The Steiner brothers defend against Buff and Norton. That's another one that's been part of this NWO dissension, and the war with WCW continues. That kind of storyline that's been in motion. So that's something else that we've played up here, and we've had the Steiners in here along with Buff and Norton. So yeah, I mean, a tag team title match here. Our tag team division is very interesting right now. That is one of the focuses we definitely will have moving forward, is kind of looking at different options for our tag team division. And as I've teased, one of the changes I'm considering to this save after Sold Out, I think it'll actually help our tag team division. It'll help a lot of people in particular, but our tag team division especially, I think. We'll see how it plays out, though. But there's your tag team championship match, Steiners versus Buff and Norton. Also, a match not listed on here is Goldberg, the open challenge that was delivered. Goldberg wants to know who's next, so it'll be Goldberg versus ... someone in a match as well. So that's another match that, with Goldberg's popularity, and those kind of things, I think that could be pretty good. And I know it was mentioned, it was brought up, and it was a really good comment, about using Goldberg in promos and such. And I kind of pointed out that I don't love doing it because I know in 1998, certainly WCW would not have loved doing it in 1998, which is why they didn't. But just one of those things where his in-ring skills are not very good ratings-wise, and charisma is the highest thing he's rated on. So we just kind of tried to put together some of those short promos, and yeah, I know look, I don't love doing it. I really don't, but it is something we've just kind of done to keep him in highly rated segments and to get him on the show without having to just beat everyone on our roster, even though I know that's kind of part of the streak. But we're going to let the streak kind of play out a little bit, where it's not something that we're just, necessarily doing on every single show. We're going to try to pace it and kind of space things out a little bit on that. So, but Goldberg will take on someone in an open challenge, and whoever that is, good luck, because Goldberg's still undefeated. And then we do wrap up with our World Championship match here, our vacant title, which we played up coming out of Starrcade after the controversial finish. We don't have a world champion at the moment, but we will have a world champion after Sold Out. It will be Hollywood Hogan taking on Sting, and, certainly doesn't get much bigger than this in terms of this main event. We've had Sting, kind of showing up and thwarting Hogan at each, stop here. Every time Hogan has tried to kind of get the advantage, Sting has found a way to kind of keep one-upping him and keep Hogan frustrated. And, we've seen Hogan just going off on Sting in one of those episodes, promises to finish Sting. That was one of our kind of show-ending rants we had from Hogan not long ago. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is the rematch of the biggest match in WCW history from an importance standpoint, and someone will be crowned the World Heavyweight Champion after the show, and it will either be Hogan or Sting, and like we said, the winner then goes on to the Super Brawl main event to take on the winner of Bret Hart and Ric Flair. So there you go. There is the sold-out card and the build to our first pay-per-view here in the series. Should be a great one. As you saw, a lot of great matches on paper. We'll see how many can deliver. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And I think coming out of Sold Out, like I said, I feel pretty confident about one of the changes I'm going to make to this save. And I think we're going to have a lot of momentum coming out. And I think we're going to be able to move through this series a little bit faster, I think, coming out of Sold Out. And then we'll have our state of, episode and all that. So you can kind of, we'll look more into the WWF. We'll look at kind of the war itself, those kind of things. So, that's something to look forward to as well. But as always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you've been waiting on the next episodes in the WWE and AEW series we have, as I said recently, I've been traveling, and so schedule's just kind of been a little bit busy. So we're just kind of knocking out this pay-per-view build for the WCW save, and we will get our usual episodes posted for WWE and AEW here very soon. So, but on the next episode of our WCW 1998 series, it will be Sold Out 1998.